Hi, I'm Dr. Anup Krishnamurthy and welcome to Marketing Management. In the next 100 minutes, we will discuss key concepts and ideas in marketing. I have a variety of topics to discuss with you. For example, the basic ideas in marketing, like what is marketing, the basic concepts, how marketing evolved from just being selling and moving beyond traditional marketing, and also looking at the environment around the firm, looking at consumers, going into the execution of marketing, which is more about the segmentation, targeting and positioning and so on. And of course, spending a lot of time on the 4 Ps of marketing. So the first topic that we're going to be discussing is what is marketing. So the first thing we need to understand is that to survive, all organizations must create some utility. And this is where marketing comes in. So designing and marketing want-satisfying goods, services and ideas is the foundation for the creation of utility. So marketing managers are responsible for several activities that are necessary to create customers that the organization wants. So for example, they have decisions about identifying customer needs, designing goods and services that meet those needs, communicating about the goods and services to prospective buyers, making the goods and services available at times and places that meet the consumer's needs, pricing of the goods and services to reflect costs, competition, customers' ability to buy and so on. And of course, providing for the necessary service and follow-up to ensure that there is customer satisfaction after purchase so that this will eventually lead to customer loyalty towards the firm. So in the end, what is marketing? Very simply put, marketing is the delivery of customer satisfaction at a profit. Remember, customer satisfaction involves a whole set of things and profit is another part. But you're delivering, as a marketing manager, you're going to be delivering customer satisfaction, but you're going to do it at a profit. So a more formal definition of marketing is given by the American Marketing Association, and they define marketing as the process of planning and executing the conception, pricing, promotion and distribution of ideas, goods and services to create exchanges that satisfy both individual and organizational objectives. So the notion of exchange, as you have seen in the definition that I just called out, is very central to marketing. It involves, you have to have in marketing a buyer and a seller. This notion of exchange is central. It is the essence in marketing in which there are 2 or more parties that give something of value to each other in order to satisfy each other's needs. So for example, you can exchange money, you can exchange goods which are tangible items, or even services and ideas. So for example, you may want good footwear, you may want say Nike shoes or Reebok or Adidas, and you're willing to give money to a firm to give you those shoes. So that is the exchange that we are talking about, which is central to marketing. Now, how is marketing different for goods and services? When we talk about goods, we're talking about something that is tangible. For example, clothing, footwear, jewelry, something to eat or furniture and so on. Whereas when you're talking about services, it is something that it's not something physical that you can hold in your hand. For example, if you go to the hair salon to get your hair cut, it's not something that you can hold in your hand, but that is still a service. When you go to the bank, and you're getting, service at the bank, either the teller or you go for a check deposition or something like that, you're still getting a service which you cannot actually hold in your hand. It's not tangible. Now, that's the difference between goods and services essentially, but there are more differences. The 4 main ones are firstly this, that it is tangible. Goods are tangible, whereas services are not. Goods are separable. That means the production of the goods is different from the consumption of the goods. So for example, if Reebok makes its shoes in its factory, you are as a consumer, you are consuming the shoe, you are wearing and running and walking in this shoe separate from where the production of the shoe happened. However, in a service, the service is inseparable from consumption. So when you are getting your hair cut or styled in a salon, you cannot be in a different place. You have to be in the same place where the service is being provided. So the production and the consumption of the service is occurring in the same place. Then goods also have homogeneity. So whether I buy a Nike shoe from Bangalore, or whether I buy a Nike shoe from Delhi or the US or somewhere in Europe, is going to be the same, because they're all being manufactured by a machine. Repeatedly the same shoe is being brought out. But services are different. Services are dependent on who is providing the service to you. For example, when you go to a hair salon, you may have the best hairstylist of that salon cutting your hair, and you make it a really good haircut. However, if a trainee comes to cut your hair, you're not going to get such a good haircut. So therefore, there is a difference depending on who is providing the service to you. And of course, lastly, goods can be perishable or not. So for example, food items are most commonly perishable goods, whereas things like furniture or bedding and so on are not so perishable. But services, on the other hand, these are always perishable goods. So you are consuming it. Once the service is provided to you, you have finished consuming the service, and therefore it is perishable. So what's now the difference between what's called B2B? You must have heard the terms B2B and B2C. So B2B is when you talk about business to business marketing, whereas B2C is business to consumer. So the firm is selling to a consumer, whereas in the former case, it's selling to another organization. So the difference between this is in various areas. So for example, when you talk about in marketing characteristics, in B2B markets, or they're also called industrial markets, they're usually geographically concentrated, all in a certain location, and you have very few buyers. Whereas in consumer markets, they are geographically dispersed. You can be across continents, and the markets are usually quite large. When it comes to product characteristics, industrial markets are technically complex. They have to be customized for each individual consumer, whereas consumer markets are usually standardized products. You're not going to customize a shoe for a particular person. You'll just make maybe 1 million copies of that shoe. When you talk about service characteristics, it's about a timely delivery is extremely crucial when you have to deliver to another organization, whereas to other consumers, it doesn't really matter. They can wait a month or even a week to get a particular product from an organization. When you look at channel characteristics, that's about the distribution. Here, industrial markets have usually direct channels. The manufacturer sells to the buyer directly. There are very few intermediaries, whereas in consumer markets, just because of the sheer volume of goods being distributed and sold and so on, you need to have many more intermediaries between the manufacturer and the consumer. When you look at buyer behavior, here you have, in industrial markets, it's very complex buying behavior because there are many people involved. The costs are very high because your buyer is spending a lot of money just on one item. For example, if you buy a really big drilling machine to drill for the metro stations, or if you buy huge oil tankers and so on, those are very complex and difficult buying decisions for an organization. Whereas for consumers, it's extremely simple. The amount of money that they are spending, the time, the effort and so on is minimal in compared to, say, buying much larger items that an organization buys. And when you have promotional characteristics, such as talk about your advertising and promotions, discounts and so on, there is more emphasis on personal selling when it comes to industrial markets, because the manufacturer's representative has to go and speak well. They have to be able to discuss and close deals with the buyers and so on. Whereas in consumer markets, it's more about advertising. You sort of what is known as pull people towards your stores. You have lots of advertising, you have creative ads that encourage people to come to your stores and buy your goods. And lastly, when you talk about pricing, there is of course bidding and negotiation when it is in industrial markets, whereas in consumer markets, it's largely based on the listed price or the MRP. So the key takeaways in this topic are that marketing firstly aids the firm in creating utility. And then, although there are many formal definitions, the simplest way to understand marketing is to know that marketing is the delivery of customer satisfaction at a profit. Then, of course, you need to remember that there's a notion of exchange is very central to marketing. You must have a buyer and a seller. And then there are, of course, differences between things like goods and services, how you market them, and between B2B markets and B2C markets.